Good morning, everybody. Enter the stars. And Hoover Dam has come back up in our consciousness. Now, I want to give a shout out to Catherine Baltzel for covering the story of the skeletons under the water. Well, as soon as I saw this date from the Georgia Guidestone Cube, I was all over this one. Catherine, great job covering this. A man snorkeling found in 40 feet of water two skeletons that were holding a sign that had the date 8/16/2014. Now, they're assuming that these skeletons had been down there since 8/16/2014. Why is 8/16/2014 important? Because that was the same date on a cube that was placed in the Georgia Guidestones on 8/16/2014. But why is this date showing up on these two skeletons that are sitting in lawn chairs underwater in 40 feet of water? That is the question. There was a group by the name of The Jam that went #1 with a song called Going Underground and Dreams of Children. Now, these went #1 on the very day the Guidestones opened on March 22nd, 1980. Now, why is that important? Because on the cube, clearly spelled out, chiseled into the cube, was the word jam. Now, we've heard all these rumors about underground tunnels in Walmart and the DUMBs, the underground military bases. Dreams of the Children went #1 on that day, and then we had Obama with Dreams of My Father, which was his autobiography. So I believe this thing has Illuminati written all over it. Now here's where it gets crazy, and we've covered this on some of our other videos. Weekend at Bernie's, about two guys that drag around their dead boss for the whole movie. Well, that film released on July 5th, one day after Malia Obama's birthday. Not in the same year. She was born in 1998, and the film released in 1989. The opposites, the mirrors. Now back to the Georgia Guidestone Cube. It was placed on 8/16/2014, but 40 days after that, we had the first case of Ebola on U.S. soil on 9/30, September 30th. That was, and 9/30, of course, is Flight 93. Obama's other daughter was born 93 days before 9/11. Are you starting to see the synchronicities here? 34 days after the cube was removed on 9/30, the Freedom Tower opened under Obama on 11/3. We got a lot of 34 synchronicities here. The Guidestones being on the 34th parallel. And the cube was placed 34 years after the Guidestones opened. The coordinates of these skeletons under the water in the river is 34 degrees north, 114 degrees west. There's your 34 years of the cube, and the 114 is the Egyptian Valentine's Day, which is 11/4, which I believe is what Obama was hinting at the opening of the Freedom Tower on 11/3. And finally, when we convert the date on the cube from 8/16 to the Julian calendar, which this is what Obama follows. The Julian is basically the reiteration of the Egyptian, ancient deities and sacrifices and everything. They repackage it to the Julian calendar, which is what Obama follows. And that conversion is 8/3, which is one day before Barack Obama's birthday. Now, some claim that this says Bernie living the dream in the river. And that's entirely possible. But what we're seeing is this term dream come up over and over again. Dreams of my father, dreams of children, as we just discussed earlier in this video. Now this is Hoover Dam. And we're going to zoom out because we just talked about Hoover Dam before all this went down. On Cinco de Mayo, 55, Jesus was conceived in 3755. This article broke on 55. And look how close a proximity this is to the underwater skeletons. It is literally 129 miles away, 166-degree bearing. It passes right by London Bridges, which is here. London Bridges is right here. This is Cienega Springs. We're going to look at some scenes dealing with water in the film Weekend at Bernie's to see if we can get any other clues. Hang on to your seat. Weekend at Bernie's. The top 3 stars. Andrew McCarthy, born on November 29th, the 333rd day of the year. The Freedom Tower opened on 11/3. That's 33 when you multiply those two numbers together. Jonathan Silverman, born one day after Barack Obama on August 5th. He is 48 years old. The Hebrew year of 1984 is 5744. Barack Obama is the 44th president. Catherine Mary Stewart, born April 22nd, one day after the Queen of England. The Queen of England just turned 89 years old. She was 88 years old in 2014 when these two skeletons were placed in the river. The anti-date of Queen Elizabeth's 21st birthday of April is 9/11. In other words, April 21st is the 111th day of the year. 9/11 has 111 days left until the end of the year. That is the anti-date. One day off. 9/11 happened just after a Labor Day weekend. Hot, humid, hazy, and horrible. Just after the Labor Day weekend. He just heard on the radio. And the whole intro of this movie is all about heat. A heat wave. He says, "Oh Christ, will you shut that thing off?" Continues before Labor Day weekend. It is going to be the 4 H's. H is 8. Hot, humid, hazy, and horrible. 8888. The Big Apple is the apple from the Garden of Eden. When he enters the scene, he's got a bag with the heart on it. I love New York. We've talked about what the heart really means. 22 years after this film released, we would have Fukushima. And as they're sitting on the roof, they contemplate beaches. And they talk about watching the fish disintegrate in front of our eyes. Now, here's the amazing thing. 22 years after this film released, the running time on this film is 97 minutes. When you reverse that, you can reverse numbers. You get the number 79. 22 years after 1979, the World Trade Center would fall. And 79 is the 22nd prime number. Just after this scene, they're still on the roof. He says, turn to page 28. That's the 28 years of the World Trade Center, 1973 to 2001. 14 years was the halfway point. He says, I want you to turn to page 41 now. They had just passed the halfway point to 9/11, which was 1987. Well, they tell you that, because later in the script he says one in December of 87, another in April of 88. There's our 88. They go back and forth saying to each other, you see it? And he's like, yeah, you see it. You see it. What about it? They're showing us what they're going to do before they do it. Here's your 44. He says, he died 4 times. He died 4 times. They say it twice. Obama's the 44th president. Now, we all know the story about the tar baby when we grew up in school. And as they're climbing around on the roof, they keep stepping in the tar, the pitch of the roof. You can even see the spots of it all over him and on the whatever he's reading here. Okay, this is the message. He's sitting in the ring, okay? They're talking about a guy who's dead. Is this all starting to come together? We did videos on the Ring of CERN, possessing the beast, the tar, the beast, black, the black goo. Okay, the script. Can you see it? Can you see it? They're in New York. I've been warning people, get out of New York. Get out of Dallas, Texas. There are way too many signs and symbols in these films going back decades, warning about these areas. And here they show Lomax the figures. And he says, call me Bernie. And he says to him, we both worked on this one, burn. And there is your CERN. Then he says, burn E, to correct them. Confirmation of the ring pool that we saw in the opening scenes of this film. Here's our Illuminati pyramid hiding in plain sight as they go to... Here we see the African gazelle, HH88. The leopard of Revelation 13. Different house, same cat. The leopard. Infinity. The figure 8. They discover the dead Bernie in this Hampton beach home. And the first thing they do is make him some coffee. Coffee was all about Linda Coffee. And anytime you see the wedding in these 9/11 films too, it refers to Weddington. These were the two attorneys. One was from Dallas, Texas. So we often see either salad or Dallas references. These were the two attorneys that argued Roe versus Wade in 1973. Now, just before this, they enter the beach home and they discover a Liechtenstein painting. And he says, that's a Liechtenstein painting. Liechtenstein died at 73 years old. Torsos by Tony. This is your Twin Towers. There's two of these guys. Now, this scene takes place on Labor Day. And we all know that 9/11 happened the day after Labor Day. This man says to her, nice outfit. Looks even nicer crumpled up on my floor in the morning, which would have been 9/11, the next day after Labor Day. And look at her outfit. That's the Twin Towers. So they walk to the top of this lighthouse, and she says it's automated. Okay, so this is kind of like the Twin Towers, and they say that they can see the whole world from up there. And then he looks into the light. He looks into the lighthouse. It blinds him, and then she says, "Look out for the trap door." And to me, this is another reference to the falling of the Twin Towers. It's almost as if they fell into a trap door. Here's the script. Here he goes to call the police, and he said there's no dial tone with 97 buttons. 97 minutes long, 97 buttons. Now, there are lots of sand and dust references throughout this film. Here they're vacuuming the dust off Bernie after he's buried by a child. They also talk in this film about dune. The top of the dune is where the house is. We know that the World Trade Center was built on sinking sand. And the Bible says, do not build your house on sinking sand. Sands of time. We're locked in time through the cursed, through the dust. And that's why they use dust in an hourglass and sinking sand to represent time. Because it is the serpent's way to defy God. Okay? So that's what all of this is about. Serpentine. Here's the number 73 on the license plate. And the film ends with Bernie on the beach, being buried by the dust, by the sand. And I believe that this represents us. And they are making fun of us, that God formed us out of the dust. And it's the jealousy of the serpent himself. Jealousy that man was made in the image of God. Take care and be safe, you guys.